Hello everybody. Thought I'd come back and do another video since it's been a good little while since I've done one now. I think it's coming up to maybe about a couple of weeks, I'd say. I've been pushing on with creating my courses that I'm doing. I'm working on doing some online courses. I want the first one to be available end of this month, so I'm really pushing on with it. It's a whole new learning curve for me as well, like the whole recording it and laying it out and putting it into different sections, so I'm trying to put it in the best way that people can grasp it and simplify it as well. But in the first course that I'm going to do, it's focusing on things like anxiety and depression and how you can overcome it for good. It's one or two courses that I'm doing. The second course that I'm doing is more of an excelling course. So like I call the first one, it's kind of like a recovery. That's exactly what I've done when I kind of first gone on my little journey trying to straighten things out for myself. And it's almost there as almost to recreate your foundations again. I think because it's coping with interactions on the daily, instead of just coping with them but learning how to master it so that you kind of getting the best out of every single situation. I think once you kind of set that ground foundation, that's when you can start to build on top. So the second course that I'll be doing, that's a lot more kind of pushing towards people who, maybe pushing towards a big goal that they've got. Could be they have an idea that they want to start a project or a business, or maybe they want to, influence their own family in a certain way, excel in a sport or something like that, but they want to know how to get more out of themselves, if you know what I mean, squeeze more juice out of it. So yeah, that's going to be the second one, but the first one it'll be the recovery. But it's going really well. A few teething issues with the recording and things like that, because I'm being the cameraman, the audio, the lights, everything, like, so just kind of doing it solo at the minute, like. But nah, it's an experience, like, and I'm growing with it. But the talk that I wanted to do today, it's about misplaced values and this kind of cultural decline that we've been involved in the past few decades, like, and it's quite hard to notice if you're not paying attention. But ultimately, think of it like this. So like when you're born as a human being, like how you become in life, or the traits that you kind of get, often people think that they're just born with them. This is me, this is how I am. It's actually a hell of a lot more than that. You're actually a product of your environment and experiences, which is ultimately whichever area of culture you dropped into. So just think, like, if you think like the West as a big umbrella, right? Like every country in the West is kind of sit underneath this umbrella. It's Western, right? But each country is different to each other, right? But they'll have similarities because they're Western, right? But then you can go inside of, say, a single country like Britain with a smaller umbrella under that bigger umbrella. So like essentially British culture. But I mean, again, you can narrow it down to even smaller subcultures. So if you go to, if you're in Carlisle and then you go to London, they'll be doing a lot of similar things. They'll definitely be British. You'll have a lot to talk about. You probably might like the same music, watch the same TV, things like that. But the accents are different. The words, the terminology, things like that's different. There's also certain crimes are higher in certain areas. Certain crimes are lower in certain areas. There's lots of different variables and nuances that go on. It's really complex, you can even go down again to an even smaller subculture when you're in your city, and then you go whatever household that you're in, because whatever you're in proximity to, the people around you who influence you from a young age, you model yourself on them. It's called empirical learning, where you learn through what you see and what you hear as you go. It's continuous from a young age. So when you say, for example, if you come from a family that's very calm and kind of say for example they're really good at kind of solving problems that they've got, or they don't blow over the top or things like that, you kind of learn those ways of dealing with problems that they do by watching them. Not all the time, like some kids can be pretty nuts at a young age, but generally you're kind of watching and you're adapting to how they behave. Monkey see, monkey do, as I say. But if you were born into like a family where it was a bit of a shouty house or something like that, where there's a lot of arguments and no compromise and this, that and the other and tit for tat, like you grow up with those traits as well. So it's this idea that when you look at society as a whole, And you see things like the mental health decline shooting up, suicide rates shooting up, you know, men, women, children, kids suicide rates in this country. It's barely been reported because they don't. It's not a good look for them. But you know, you think, what is attributing to all this suffering? And again, if you look at how our culture has changed, say, since like post-war era in the 50s, 60s, you know, there was a lot of community spirit there. You know, everybody kind of came together after the war. There was a lot. Everybody was rebuilding, and everybody valued life a lot more. They valued security. They valued what they had because they had so much taken away from them. And I think the longer we get used to having freedoms, the less that we realise that the values that they had in the past were so important. So like there's this culture of individualism now, which is, you know, vastly changed. If you think at the end of the 19th century, 1800s, they introduced this, it was called the nuclear family. Now before that, you had family units that were huge, right? You know, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, you know, grandparents, like, you know, you'd have 10 cousins in that side, like 12 on that side type thing. It was, you married your daughter into another family to bond the family together, you know. Security in numbers, that's what it was, because you needed that back in the day. But now as we drip down, we've got this nuclear family. They call it a nuclear family, which is basically mum, dad and the two kids. You know, they used to advertise it a lot in like 1920s, 1930s, you know, while dad's at work and mum's at home, you know, washing the dishes type thing. They narrowed it down into, you know, 2 adults, 2-3 kids type thing. But now as we kind of go on, this idea that you know, family units break up so much easier now. So you know, it's rare to have your mum and your dad still together. I grew up in a single parent family, you know, just me, my mum, and my two of the siblings, like. So you're lacking that kind of father figure in your life as well, which is a major thing for development. They say, like, they've said, I can't remember the exact statistics, but I've looked at it before, and they were saying something like, you can see a direct correlation from people who come from, you know, 2 adult family or from a single parent family, and the single parent family, they don't flourish as well. They don't succeed as well, because there's not as much stability there. There's too much strain on the one person. You know, they're juggling bills, juggling this, they have to work more hours, all the rest of it. It's, you know, that's a major contributing factor. But there's also like a lot of cultural issues that have changed as well. Since like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Look how the music's changed, right? You know, like if you look at hip hop, things like that, right? How that started, that was like breakdancing on bits of cardboard in the street and that, do you know what I mean? Funky little tunes that they were all getting into. And as it slowly came over time, late 80s, early 90s, it was gangster rap. But you know, they still had a message to portray. It was all about oppression and things like that, and fighting back against oppression. So you had a bit of a political kind of message behind. Then you move up to like 2000s, 2005s, when it was my era, and it was all about selling drugs, you know, picking up women, loads of jewels, loads of gold, all this kind of thing. But it was, you know, well, I was young at the time, but I still thought it was catchy. The lyrics were amazing, if you know what I mean. The lyrics were really good. It was artistic poetry. Like now, look at how rap kind of music is now. You know, they've all got pink and purple hair, man. They're like My Little Ponies. The lyrics are absolutely terrible. It's all mumble rap. They call it mumble rap. You get paid millions and millions and millions just for looking like an idiot. Auto-tuned as well. If you want to look at like other types of artists, I mean, that dominate now compared to what it used to be. You know, if you think in the 90s, you had things like Spice Girls and Boyzone and all that, man. You know, girl groups and things like that. Now it's like non-stop twerking. It's basically like the music videos, like being in a strip club. They are like things like Cardi B and that, Meg the Stallion and all this. Like all they're talking about is hardcore sex, drugs. The things that they're talking about in the lyrics, that's, you know, they're pumping through our ears every day and our kids' ears every single day. It's like, you know, like that WAP song. We've all heard that WAP tune. Like that's on the radio, man. TikTok, kids on TikTok dancing to it. grinding against the floor and things like that, man. I'm sorry, like, I know people think, oh, it's just a faz, but it's this monkey see, monkey do. TikTok's an example of that. Someone will do a certain type of video or do a certain thing or a dare. I've even seen in the news of young lads jumping off bridges and things like that because they were copying someone that they seen on TikTok, this idea that you hang on a bridge and then you pull yourself up. 9-year-old boy falling to his death. There was something called the belt challenge as well, where children were putting belts around their necks. On camera, on TikTok. The blackout challenge. And there was a young girl on it in the UK, she died. There could have been more of them died. But this is a fad. They see it, and what do? They copy and they do it. So this is the thing, like, as we've got all these, like, it's at the end of the day, what you call it, it's morally corrupting media. Love Island. There's no love on that island. Like, that's a join on the show, get on it, make yourself a fortune, get your name out there, and make millions for the rest of your life, and be a social influencer island. It's nothing to do with love. They don't even need to win. They just got to get on there and be popular. They don't have to get on there and be popular and set for life. And what kind of values do they show? They all just lie and manipulate and deceive each other to try and get each other into bed, and then they get caught out and then they move to another. It's like, you're just glorifying that as love. Like, I mean, you've got to understand, people think, look, this is just entertainment. Oh, well, man, it's harmless. It's only a bit of this and it's only a bit of that, but it's not. This is the thing. They call television programs for a reason. It's the same when you see, like, I don't know, these Kardashians who are walking about with the posing and the holding the bags and all that, like, and the strutting about and all this. Like, I'm sorry, you can see them everywhere now. They've all got the bags done, they've all got the lips injected and all this, and I'm not taking the piss. I feel for you women, like, because I know why you do it. Because you want to keep up with everybody else. It's I know you're not directly competing, but if this is what women are valuing now, and this is what it gets the thumbs up, and that's good, then people don't want to miss out on it. You don't want to feel lesser. It's the same with, a lot of lads with, like, young boys, man, snapping themselves, like, breaking the back to pay for £1,200 jackets, £500-600 jumpers, £300 t-shirts, £500-600 pairs of trainers and all that. It's and they're on apprentice wages, man. I was talking to a lad that I worked with. He was only 20-year-old, and he said he needed to save up, and he worked it out. If he saves up for about 7 or 8 months and he keeps off the drink and all that, then he'll be able to afford this jacket. I said, I thought you saving up to go on holiday. He says, no, I want a jacket. I said, what was it? Canada Goose. But he was struggling to save. I mean, like, he's talking about spending like 6-7 months saving up for a jacket. Look, it is what it is. But everybody wants to fit in to the culture. But the problem is, if you poison the culture, it's like you go against the grain, you're ostracized, you're kicked out. If you're like, nah, look, I don't want to act like that, I don't want to do this, I think that's a bit wrong, or blah blah blah, you get laughed at because it's not the cultural norm. Doesn't matter if it's morally right. The morals become irrelevant to most people nowadays. As long as everybody else is doing it, it must be all right. But it isn't. It's actually not all right. It's actually causing this social decline. Things like, look, things, and just a little kind of warning talking about porn, and I'm not going to go into details of things like that, but look how that has changed over the years. It went from a bloke with a tash walking in to fix a photocopier, you know what I mean? And it was, not going to go into too much detail, but it wasn't as brutal as things now. Like I was watching a little news thing on YouTube that was talking about it, and it was saying like more than 90% of porn on the internet is males dominating females, and it's obvious, and there's a lot of violence involved, and a lot of defilement, like just gross stuff, which is just under the same bracket as it's just porn. Well, it isn't. It's actually they say it's the most popular. It's called Gonzo, and it's on Pornhub. It's the most popular type, but it's basically showing men just abusing women, like multiple men abusing them, and we've seen this as normal. Like we've had to deal with this in school. So you grow up as a kid, kids now, they've got a smartphone in their hand, 8, 9, 10-year-old. They've got access to all of this at such a young age. again, monkey see, monkey do. You can't have an entire society of people functioning like this. I know we've always drunk as well, but the drink and drug culture that's came, it's not just a few drinks and a couple of cigarettes in the pub and everybody home at, 12, 1, 2 in the morning at latest. People are getting on benders for 24, 48 hours, man. Sometimes weeks on end. Daily. Spending hundreds. Breaking the bank balance. Getting addicted to stuff. And that changes your behaviour because you're being deceptive and you're being this to try and pay for more. And look, there's so many different toxic elements in our society that we have to start pulling away from them. And I got quite curious and I was thinking, right, well, if this is how our society works, like, it's everywhere, it's hard to avoid. If you're a young kid now and you want to go out, you can't wait to go out and party, 17, 18, 19-year-old, man, you've been looking forward to this kind of stuff forever. But I mean, look how that is now, with the level of narcissism and all that's going on. If you see them, it's just pictures of themselves all the time. It's narcissism, man. It's self-adoration. It's look at me, aren't I awesome type thing. It's not good. Just think of what some of these Kardashians are like, right? And they can be like that because they've got billions in the bank. It doesn't matter. They're not going to screw up they're not going to screw up a family. They're not going to be able to financially support and things like that. Thus, they can still neglect the kids. That'll happen. They're so self-absorbed in themselves. But imagine people who are modelling themselves on people like that, but they don't have the finances behind them. They may be a single parent, and all they're doing, they're on the phone taking pictures of themselves all the time and that, and trying to look good for this and good for that. It's like, come on. So I had a little look, and I was like, well, what would constitute a good, healthy society and all that? And there's these areas around the world called blue zones. There's one in Okinawa, Japan, and I know that there's one in the Mediterranean as well. And there's other areas where everybody there, there's the suicide rates are non-existent. Suicide doesn't happen. It's a rare thing. You speak to these people. I've seen them on video and they explain the level of suicide in our country, and you can see on their face they're just worried. They're sad. They're extremely sad. They don't know what goes on. They're like, why would people do this? They shake their heads. They can't understand it. Cancer rates are minute. I think in Okinawa, I'll have to fact check it, but I'm pretty sure cancer's less than 2 or 1%, whereas in this country it's 1 in 2. So they're living to 100. Oh, they work until they die as well, and when they work, it's just living in fishing villages. They're living, but the thing is, they have communities, strong community, strong tradition, their own music. They have a lot of moral principles. They look after the elders and things like that. They all look after each other. They're all, everybody looks up to the elder and looks after them. They don't just chuck them in a home or all like that anymore. The kids are raised well. They're secure. They all communally kind of work for each other. And unfortunately, that's what you need. And I know it's easier in those small rural areas because there's not as big as cities, and there's not as this all that media kind of playing and influencing them and changing how they think and how they act. It's natural. And you can kind of build them circles here yourself. You can be, once you're more aware of these things and that what kind of toxic effects that they have, you can start to, build an environment or put yourself in environments that are going to help you grow, or help your kids grow, or your family grow, your other friends' families grow, things like that, because you have to. This is the thing, you can't expect to have everything governed for you in a world with this many different toxic influences. You can't, because everybody's just going to fall prey to it. I kind of followed, when I was doing a lot of my studies, one of the things that I found a correlation, which was that I found a lot of similarities between, was I used to watch a lot of lectures from a guy called Jordan Peterson and listen to how he kind of spoke and talked about different things, about discipline, about willpower, about abstinence, about what honour was, what respect was, how to kind of orient yourself in a world like this, where there's so many different things that pull you away. People can totally knock you, or make the way that you act change. If you're around toxic people all the time, you'll actually drop your own morals then to have to compete with them. So you almost cutting bits of yourself off there. But I found when I was reading my Zen book, reading a book, A Complete Book of Zen by Kong Q Kit, I think it was called. And he's like a Shaolin master, like Zen master and all that. And the same teachings that he was saying in there that are thousands of years old, right? It was the exact same stuff that he was teaching in psychology, modern psychology. And this is ancient wisdom. You know, he talks about the three poisons. Three poisons, he says, if you have hatred, greed, or delusion present in your life, the devil's there to stay. You know, the delusion, when you're delusional, it's like, you know, you construe things or you tell yourself things in a way that suits you better, even though it's not truth. That's delusion. Greed, obviously, we all know what greed is. Just more for me, not thinking about anyone else. It's individual minded, it's almost obsessive like. And then obviously hatred, well, we can all understand that. We all have reasons to want to hate people, like, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, when you people do things to you or have done something to you before, you know, it's very easy to hold hatred, but honestly, if you hold that in you all the time, you have to let it go. I had to let a lot of it go. You know, we can self-decept, we can delude ourselves, we can be greedy with certain things. So again, what makes you hate, what makes you judge, I mean, think of all these influences that we look at now. It's all toxic, it's all judging, it's all this, that and the other, chat. Turn on the TV, Coronation Street, Emmerdale, EastEnders, things like that. What's it about? Drama. You know, she said this, he done that, murder, backstabbing, stealing, deceptive behaviour, manipulation. That's all it is. Never a positive thing, is it? Always the worst hell in the world going on, because people watch it and just see that as normal behaviour, but it's, again, television programme. It's everywhere. So what I'd learned to do on my little thing was understand what is toxic and what's anchoring and what's pulling me down, and understanding what kind of things is going to enhance me and bring me up, rather than just going through the status quo, you know, the same norm that everyone else is going through. Because this is the thing, you follow the mainstream, you've got a mainstream mind, you're doing mainstream things, you'll have mainstream problems. You have to start looking at your own intuition, you have to start following your own moral compass. We all know what's right and wrong. And I know it can get extremely confused in the world that we live in when there's that much immoral behaviour going on. It's like, well, there's an old saying, the good guy finishes last, and I understand that. That's why you've got to safeguard yourself. You don't finish last, you actually win if you put yourself in the right environment with the right kind of people. You know, I know it can be very difficult when you're listening to this kind of thing and you're thinking, well, what else can you do? You basically just rhymed off a lot of the things that I watch and see, and like, this is the thing. It is what we do. Like, I've watched those shows in the past, I've watched that TV in the past, I've listened to that kind of music in the past, man. 100%. But it's subversively influencing every single person on the planet. That's it. People are suffering. I've read a horrible statistic not too long ago that was saying 1/4 of 14 to 17-year-old girls in the UK have self-harmed. Because they can't escape it, man. They've all got smartphones all the time. They've got all this toxic media at the click of a finger. They're all in, you know, if they're having a hard time at school or somebody bullying them at school, back in our day, 3:30 comes, boom, if you're out the door, you're out, you're home. You know, you might not be alright, you're thinking about it, but these lot are locked into WhatsApp groups and all that, and they don't want to leave because then they're losing their mates. But then they're not mates because they're all ripping each other and pulling each other to bits. They're just stuck in turmoil. A lot of adults can say that as well. I mean, I don't mention names out like that, but I've spoke to women before that say, like, their friendship circles that they're in, the friendship circles that they're in, they struggle because they're not like, they're all talking about each other behind each other's back. You get up and go for a few drinks and all that at a bar. Like, they get up. I've been there before. Around like a table of girls. They've gone up and went to the bar straight away. Have you seen what she's wearing? Oh my god, no. Oh my god, what a sham. All this. And they come back and they're all smiling at her and that. And she's none the wiser. But they are the wiser because they do it to each other all the time. It's like, that's no way of living, man. Come on. It's not like. If we've got everything else is stacked against us, right? You know, everything that we need to destroy ourselves within this society, it's there. It's there, like drink, drugs, alcohol, all this media, stuff like that. It affects every single one of us, even though you don't think it does. Of course it does. But if we can't look after each other and we can't make our own good social bonds, even with a good few people, you know, get your circle right first, your family unit right. Work on that. You know, get the missus or the husband involved. Say, you know, start working for each other. Let's compromise a lot more. It's the only way it works. You've got to give some things up to make other people happy, and vice versa. Find a good compromise. Start with your own circles, man. And you can be there better for your kids and that. You can give a better output to your kids, and you can bring more direction to them as well. And then when you've got your circle, right, and then your mates' family circles, they're working on theirs and they're working on theirs, and it becomes a bit of a thing. Then you're linking up. Before you know it, you've got a community going. You've got a whole new. This is how society changes, man. It's constantly changing. It's either changing for the better or the worse. It's never staying still. And who changes it? People. All of us. Every single one of us, with every single action that we do, we're impacting somebody along the way. We're like little nodes in a network. You know, some people can be moving around, doing negative things, and, you know, leaving a trail of destruction behind them. That's affecting people for a long, long time. But then there's people doing a lot more positive things. When more people are doing positive things, you know, the more wholesome a society becomes, the more decent people in there that you have, and the more we can better ourselves, our society changes as well. And we don't tolerate that, say, negative, toxic, hateful, deceptive, manipulative behaviour of other people anymore. Because at the minute, it just rolls. We just accept it because it's that norm. It's that normal. But nah, it's not the way. We can't survive this way. Look, it's not getting any better. With all this corona stuff that's going on and that as well, you know, the lockdowns are absolutely crushed the middle class and their lower class businesses, and that we were losing up to 243 businesses a week. They've absolutely knackered our money. So there's a massive gap between the super wealthy and the poor now, which increases crime rates. It's a correlation that happens across the world. The higher the gap between the super rich and the poor, the more crime. Crime is going up. You know, knife crime in London, things like that, rape attacks, things like that, sexual perversion. Don't even get me started on child trafficking and things like that, because more should be done to stop that kind of stuff. I despise that. You know, you think, you wonder, because you think, you know, they can. If there was people transporting guns and things like that around the country, I'm pretty sure they would have that stopped. But, you know, children. It's the fastest growing black market business on the planet, yet it's just going unchecked. And it's heartbreaking, man. We have to bring more order to this world. All of us. We can't just sit back and just get on and keep pleasing ourselves day after day after day and just neglecting everything else, man. At least, very least, work hard for your closest. Be a good pal to your closest, man. Don't leave people suffering on their own. When you know they're suffering and things like that, even if you don't know how to approach them or things like that, ask someone. Get in touch. What's the best way to approach this? Like, because I do want to help them, but I don't know what to say. I get that. But sometimes you just got to try. Even if you don't get it right the first time, listen. Sometimes just listening to folk and let them get it out and things like that, and then helping them come up with a solution and say, well, I think maybe if you change that, you can. Often the third person can see what the first person can't. You know, they'll see it from a neutral perspective. They'll be like, right, I can see what you're doing here. That's where you're kind of going wrong. Maybe try that. You know, it's about working with each other. It's not about getting it right every time. But God, we're here to help each other. So yeah, I don't want to keep rambling on and all that, because I do feel like I was kind of going on there. But I just thought I'd put in a little bit of Tuesday inspiration just to show this is how we're all kind of born and bred. We are a product of our experiences and our surroundings, and what you see going on in the world today is basically highlighting the problems that we have in our society. All these declines, all this corruption going on, all this, that and the other. We have to fix it. We've let it get this way, and we can turn it around as well. So on that note, anyway, I hope you all have a good Tuesday, and I'll be back soon with another video, and hopefully I can get these courses done by the end of the month as well. So thank you very much.